Hello, artists. This is Roger again with Salty Live, filling in for your favorite art teacher, Dianne Mize. And Dianne wants you to know she appreciates all the well wishes for her speedy recovery, and we hope to have her back soon. Today we are doing a recap on isolating objects in paintings. There's a lot of different ways to go about this subject, and probably the best way is to go ahead and get into it. So here's the live stream that Dianne did from 2 years ago, and many of the things still hold true.
Happy June, whatever it is, fourth Sunday in June, everybody. Welcome to our June live chat. You see I'm nested here among a bunch of penguins, and you'll probably find out why in a minute, but you have to look kind of hard to find me. I see folks coming in, and that's delightful to see. So we'll just start with giving you a little bit of what we call these housekeeping details. What we're going to do, we'll have this live chat. Our focus today is about isolation, how you can use isolation in your paintings, make it work, or not. We'll see all of that. So we have our members. We have some of our members coming on now. I'm glad to see Cheryl, Kevin, Maurice, and others I'm sure are coming on. Yeah, Roger just moved some stuff around for me there. So the way this is going to work is that the members get to ask questions. You become a member by clicking on join. And there's a small fee there of $4.99, something like that. $4.99 a month
US
is the fee that you pay to become a member, but you get stuff for it. You get every month a coupon code for a free video lesson from our website, DianneMize.com, and you get the privilege of asking questions on these live chats. We can't answer questions from everybody who watches because that would be too many. So this is our way of keeping the questions manageable. And then also when you're a member, you get a free little snippet, you might call words of wisdom or visuals of wisdom every second Sunday, every third, what Sunday is it?
The snippet.
The snippet comes out.
Second
Sunday. Every second Sunday, the snippet. Okay, so that's probably about enough of what we do. So I'm seeing other folks come in, and everybody's saying hello. Bridget, Natalie, Mike, Maggie, Joni, Joan, and I already said hello to others, and Fiona, did I say that right? I hope. Yeah. So good. Yeah, let's get started. So the subject is isolation. Now, those of you who took a recent workshop know we delved pretty deeply into isolation. I thought it'd be good to discuss it generally with everybody, and let's give that subject a good little introduction to the world. I bet you it's something that a lot of people really don't consider. So we'll start out with a short video. Now, during this video, I'm going to be explaining or showing you ways in which 3 of our master painters handled isolation. And within that, you're going to find ways that you can handle isolation, and you will begin to discover what we mean when we say isolation. So, you know what I think is probably a good idea? Just watch the video, and if you have a question, jot it down, but wait until after the video before actually putting it in the chat box. Because I always wonder how you can chat and comprehend what a video is saying or teaching anyway. So, did I cover all the housekeeping?
I think so.
Okay, I guess we're ready to roll. Roger, are you ready to roll?
Here we go.
All right, here we go.
An isolated shape or any isolated area in our paintings is one that visually does not relate to the rest of the painting. It feels that it doesn't belong. When we're painting, no matter what our subject, we are visually composing. In a well-composed painting, everything belongs visually, regardless of the meaning of the painting or regardless of the subject of the painting. I want to show you how 3 master artists composed with isolated images while making them belong. Let's begin with this painting by John Singer Sargent. You see this little boy? He's an isolated image, but Sargent has composed it in such a way that the isolated image belongs to the entire painting. Now here's one way he's done that. Notice how the woman is looking down at the little boy and how the basket she's holding out, creating a visual path towards the little boy. And then the little boy's looking down, and that too pulls our visual movement in that direction. Now watch what happens when I turn the woman's head in another direction and take away the basket. Now the little boy is isolated. Do you see the difference? It weakens that whole composition. He really feels isolated there. Now, it would work all right as a painting, and, as a less successful painting, but people might not notice it. But certainly the way Sargent originally constructed it unites that whole scene in such a way that we don't feel anything lacking. Another thing Sargent has done, and he has done beautifully throughout his major works, is the way he puts images, puts figures together. He groups them together in such a way that they are unified together and unified into the whole piece. Now look at that group of 3 women. I'm going to take away that central figure. Now you see how isolated those other figures look without that central figure there. In fact, now we have the boy feels more isolated, although he feels a little more unified with the woman who's looking towards him because of that directional pull. The woman in the center is isolated, and that group of the woman and the young boy on the left are feeling isolated. So Sargent has grouped these by making a group of 3 women there, and this woman plays that central role of unifying that entire group. So that's one method we can use when there are multiple images, whether it's people or trees on a hill or trees isolated in fields, overlapping them, grouping them so that some are overlapped or maybe some are giving a directional pull towards others is one way of unifying them and unifying them into the whole painting. Now let's take a look at the woman and the young boy on the left. Notice here how the basket the woman is carrying is overlapping the boy behind her. Now I won't take that away, but that is it's a visual technique. Of course, he's put together there the action of what's actually going on in that scene with the visual composing. And he's unified those images that otherwise would be isolated, unified them by grouping and by overlapping. So those are 2 major ways that we can handle images we want to include in our work, which in our reference might be isolated. It's to find ways to overlap them or to group them within overlapping or group them within some sort of directional pull. This 19th century painting by Jerome is an excellent example of another way we can use directional movement to make an isolated image belong in a painting. So we have that central isolated image, which is obviously the area of emphasis. Now, that's the term I prefer over focal point. I know the term focal point is used by most painting teachers. I don't like it because of the word point. It suggests too narrow an area. So I'm going to call it area of emphasis. That's my term. Back to the subject, we can see that central figure, that isolated figure, is our area of interest. but belongs to the piece, does not stick out like a sore thumb, belongs to the piece for three different reasons. And those three different reasons are also techniques we can use to make isolated images belong to our paintings. One is also the use of directional pull with one-point perspective. We see it right here where he's used one-point perspective actually to pull our attention to that isolated image. But because of the way everything else is arranged, the attention, the visual path is going from the isolated image up the stairs, back down, and so on. So the isolated image is actually a part of the painting due to our placing emphasis on it. And that brings us to another way we can make isolated images belong in our paintings. Simply make them a part of the visual path. So any kind of directional pull, whether it's one-point perspective or whether it's simply the way we've leaned those images or aligned those images toward the isolated image, that's what we mean by directional pull. So that's a major way that we painters can make isolated images belong rather than sticking out like sore thumbs. One way to remember it, if it sticks out like a sore thumb, it doesn't belong. Another way Jerome has made that figure belong is with using an analogous color scheme or having the image to fit so that the colors are within and around the image are analogous. Now let me illustrate to you what happens. You can see there that all those colors, all these colors in this area right here, in fact, the color scheme itself is built on warm colors. This is an analogous color scheme with a slight emphasis of the complements we can see right here. But all these are in the warm color range, the warm hue range. Now what if Jerome had used here a blue garment instead of a brown garment? There you go. See how isolated that feels? If he had used that in his painting, not even doing that would cause it to fit into the rest of the painting, even though this hue is pretty much in the same hue range as this and this and this and this. Nevertheless, because it's that central figure, because it's an isolated figure, it sticks out like a sore thumb. That's the sort of thing we watch. We lean color or lean hue in such a way that it blends visually with the areas around it. So that's another technique we can use to make the isolated images belong. And a third way we can make isolated images belong, illustrated by Jerome here, is value range. Finding a way to keep the isolation, or most of it at least, in a similar value range. Let's bring the color reader over to do that. We'll just park it about right here. Now let's bring our little color value reader over and we start reading. Now look right here. This is the value range. So I'm going to read areas within his cloak, and I find it's mostly in that dark value range right here. And now let's read the area around it. And there you are. The areas immediately around him is kept within that dark value range. As long as the values are within 3 value intervals of the values within the major values within the isolated image itself, it belongs. It has enough contrast to emphasize. In this, it has enough value contrast to emphasize the image, but it belongs in that value range, and that helps the image feel as if it belongs to the whole painting. Andrew Wyeth is a master at composing with isolated shapes, and Christina's Whirl is a prime example of that mastery. And this brings us to the last, and you might say a very important way that we can compose with isolated shapes, and that is to allow the isolated shape to be the subject of the painting itself. But if he had just simply made her the subject, such as we see here, the painting would not be nearly so powerful. Maybe a bit mysterious, but not nearly so powerful. And even if he'd placed her in the same environment without the other isolated elements, we see it still feels empty, meaningless. Here's the environment that Wyeth chose to put Christina in. We see two major shapes, and this is often a wonderful way to compose that sort of message where you're making the isolated images, or the isolated, in some cases, a single isolated image, as the subject of the painting itself. It's what the painting is all about. So this is the environment, just two empty shapes. Now remember, we're dealing with two-dimensional space when we're painting, and this is what Wyeth has set up here, a two-dimensional space with two major shapes. He's placed Christina in that, but it still feels empty. Christina is isolated in this big space, but nothing up here to really bring our eye to where she's going. Now we add the house, we have more meaning, but we have only a single directional movement. So the eye only does this. But when we add the little building, we see the composition come together. Look what he's done here now. The little building serves as a visual anchor, you might say, to pull our eye back in this direction and bring our eye back down to Christina. And so now we have a triangular path. We can see it diagrammed right here. When we have a subject like this, where there are many parts of the subject that can encompass a large area, that subject itself can be or can encompass a larger part of the canvas of the painting. And when we do that kind of use of an isolated image, then the many parts of the image itself become other parts of the painting, and it is no longer isolated. Let's stop now and give you a chance to ask your questions.
All right. I hope you've got some questions. You know, I think one reason we see so much isolation. I got this question before when we had this in our workshop. The question was, why are so many images isolated in paintings we see, and especially in exhibitions? And you know, the same sermon I've been preaching for however long we've been doing this, that if you're only paying attention to the images and to making those images look like themselves, chances are that, well, you run the risk of their isolating out from the painting. So we're really composing, visual, with a visual language, and so getting the images, doing the things you want them to do in your painting is only part of it. Making them belong to the whole composition is a major thing. And so that's what I think, that's what my whole focus is on everything as far as teaching painting is concerned. So do you have any questions now about things that concern you about isolation, about the various techniques that we can use for isolation? Are you having trouble hearing me still? Roger's doing some adjustment. I'll stop saying anything significant until we get the volume adjusted.
I'm doing all I can.
Lots of people are saying, let us know now. It'll be 15 seconds before we get your message, but let us know now. Is the volume still low? And you might even try on your device to turn your volume up as loud as it will go on whatever device you're using to watch and listen to this. Let us know if the volume is corrected now. So otherwise, all my words of wisdom might get lost. Okay, yes, yes, you can hear, or yes, the volume is low. Can you hear better? That's what we want to know. I will just wait until I hear whether you can hear. Use earbuds still low. Some are saying still low. Wearing earbuds helps. We don't know why the volume's low here. Maybe I will talk a little louder. I'll try to talk a little louder, still a bit low. Is it at all corrected? So volume fine. Okay, some are saying volume fine. Those of you that are still experiencing low volume, hit your volume increase. If you're on a laptop, you should have a plus there that you can hit. Just sit on it till it goes to top volume, and other devices have pluses. They're usually indicated by pluses, aren't they, on the sound portion of whatever keys or what part. Okay, here we're getting some. Kevin says, well, audio's low, but it's fun if I crank it up. Audio for image overview is perfect. Something. Okay, Cheryl, I'm still struggling with directional pull. I know there are many ways but how to decide what is best to use so the isolated images draws to the eye but not overpowering, like Christina. Okay, let's talk about that just a little bit. Directional pull is my term. Other terms that are used for it is simply directional movement, the directional visual path. Directional means that it is moving in a specific direction. Means that one image as aligned to another is aligned in a specific direction. So if two images are side by side in a painting, they have a horizontal direction. Or if one image is here and another image is here, it has a diagonal direction. So that's what the direction means. Now the pull has to do with the strength of the direction. So if you have two or more images aligned or positioned in a painting, they are going to cause a directional pull. And if you have, say if you have three images, back to Christina. Remember, when I took all the images out, and I put Christina in by herself, you didn't really have any directional pull except right there with Christina in the way her body was positioned in that landscape, a slight little diagonal there, but you didn't have anything anywhere else that got your attention that caused the eye to go there. And it's is how it affects the eye, the attention it causes the eye that causes the directional pull. Now, if you notice, when I put the house at the back end, I pointed out that there we had a single direction. When we put the little building back in, now we have a triangular direction. The pull itself depends on the degree, how much it is attracting the eye. So maybe this will help Cheryl. If there's a strong value contrast between the image itself and its surroundings, it's going to pull the eye to it quicker, stronger, than if that value contrast were less. Now, if you can imagine, I just have an idea, brilliant idea. If you can imagine, if I had I had Christina down here, and before putting the house back in, suppose I had reduced the darkness of the house. So suppose I had made the house lighter and closer in value to the landscape, to the field itself. Now, can you imagine that? I put that in. Your eye would go there because it's a different image and it's isolated, but it won't go there as quickly as it does when it's a stronger value contrast. And same thing will happen with color contrast. The closer relationship images have to their surroundings, the more, you could say, the calmer they are, or the less the less interested the eye is to go there. The stronger that color contrast of any image with its surroundings, is going to attract the eye quicker. So it has to do with, or the directional pull that we establish in a painting has to do with to what degree we call attention. That's the emphasis principle again. To what degree we call attention to the images themselves, to each image, and the images as they relate to each other. So if you have two images, you have one, size is another thing that will affect it. If the images are equal size, equal value, the eye's just going to go back and forth. It won't know which one to go to. So it's the amount of attention that the images get. I mean, let me say that differently. The amount of attention that an image gets, or the degree to which the eye wants to go to it, depends upon how much it draws the eye to it. And the things that cause the eye to go to something are its size, its position within the painting itself, its value contrast, its color contrast, and sometimes it may also be influenced by the directional pull. So I hope I didn't make that too convoluted, but you know, you get me started in something, I don't know where to stop. Somebody's got a bad echo. Okay, Mary Ellen says, Diane, can you talk a little about the topic as it relates to non-representational painting? Non-representational painting, yes. Well, it's the same thing in non-representational painting. I get my tongue twisted around that word. In non-representational painting, we have, the only thing that's missing are the recognizable images. But strokes or shapes of that are emphasized, to the degree that they are emphasized, they're going to attract the eye to them. So if you have a very calm shape, say, take a Mark Rothko for example. His paintings are more known for his color field paintings, where there's really not a lot of value contrast. The eye is bathing the whole surface pretty much at once, and there may be some variations that might pull the eye to them. There's not a lot of activity there. Well, but compare that in non-representational with a Kandinsky. And a Kandinsky painting is very active because there are lots of shapes, there's lots of value contrast, and you will notice in Kandinsky that the shapes and the value contrast might vary in color contrast. So it's all the things that get most attention are the things that are more contrasted with the area in which they are located. Now, if we go to the idea of does it belong, is it overemphasized, or is it just I use the term sticks out like a sore thumb. That's a good old southern term, but maybe used everywhere else too, I don't know. Anyway, that's why it's important to have color harmony. Whatever you use for getting color harmony harmonizes the whole painting so that it helps things belong. And we know that analogous colors will do that. We also know that closer value contrast, that doesn't mean it's got to be absolutely, just a single value difference, but within a close range of about 2 to 3 intervals of value contrast also helps to unify, because it's keeping it pretty close in the value range. So maybe let me know if I said enough about that. Was that Mary Ellen? Let me know if I said enough about that. If not, I could rattle on some more about it. Cheryl, so the emphasis principle depends upon our own decision as to whether we want attention to it. Absolutely. Absolutely. The emphasis principle, the degree to which we use it, if we can overemphasize, I like to relate emphasis to sound. What, Roger? That if you have a sudden loud sound, then that sound is overly emphasized. So if we have sound, when we're, say, an orchestra, for example, in an orchestra, the degree to which the sound is emphasized gets our attention. The same thing happens in painting. So if we have an image or a portion of image overemphasized, then that's going to create a disconcerting area in the painting. So yes, to the degree that we want to emphasize it, and that is that's one area of how we use our creativity, because emphasis is a wonderful tool for creative expression. So I don't know if I made that clear or not. You could, like I always say in these chats, just let me know whether I made it clear. Okay. Seems like YouTube's the one that's having some problems with audio. Roger just found out he's got a note for you there. Okay, Mary Ellen. Okay, Mary Ellen says that's very helpful. Rothko and Kandinsky examples made it clear. Oh, good, good. Because they're really opposite. They're both great artists in their genre, but they're opposite as far as how they use those principles. Okay, now let me see. Where are we, Roger?
That's it.
Huh?
We're there.
Oh, we're there.
Yeah.
We're there as far as the questions go?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, in the what interests me are the variations that we have, of various ways that we have, that we can actually make images that are isolated out in the world, images that we want to use in our paintings. We can, as artists, we manipulate those. We don't have to, take a picture of it and go copy the picture. That doesn't get the job done. But we might take a picture to record the image itself, but then we can rearrange or edit or do these things that enable those images to belong together and belong to that composition. To me, that's the exciting thing about painting. It's not just making images that look like something. Okay, Joni, what you're saying is so helpful. Thanks for the questions and the answers. Yeah, the questions sure do make it help clear things up, don't they, Joni? Cheryl says, thank you. I'm pondering on my homework and whether I'm really creating a directional pull or not, and whether my isolated image is just the right emphasis. Well, the best way to find out is go back and turn your back to it. Step back from your work. Homework, for those of you who don't know, this is the workshop we just did, and the homework the students are doing for the workshop we just did. It was on isolated images, so that's what that's all about. Here's the best way to test that. We can look at our work. How many times I've talked about that? We can look at our work while we're in the process of working at it. If we get too involved in it, we no longer are able to see it. There's one thing. The other thing is overthinking. When we are working a principle, we have to think about the principle in order to understand how it works. But then there's that danger of overthinking. And so we've got to respond visually. In our heads, we work out we learn how the tool works. We learn how to make the tool work. But we also then have to learn how to respond to how it works. So that means that we have to give a visual response to what we're doing and not a thinking response. And so my advice would be to turn your back on your work when you're not quite sure whether it's doing what it should be doing or what you should be doing or whatever. Turn your back on it, walk away from it, maybe even take a walk or get away from it for a length of time, 15, 20 minutes, something like that. And what I like to do is I like to turn around and just look without thinking. Just look. If you even put music on and sing to the music while you look, anything can keep you from thinking. Just look and see where is your eye going. Pay attention. Where is your eye going? Because the way your eye is moving is what your work is doing. It's the way your work is guiding the eye. And so I think maybe the important thing is to get your head out of it think it through only to the point that you understand the skills, the techniques, because we have to, as I said before, we have to think about the techniques in order to get a handle on how to make them work. But then we need to stop thinking, because remember, we're working in a visual language. And so it's how we respond visually. We're creating a painting that people are going to respond to visually. So we as artists need to train ourselves to respond to it visually as well. And yeah, I know that's a hard one, but it's not a cold. That's not a cold kind of analysis. So here, if you think about it like this, we have 6 senses that we know about. Maybe future generations will discover others. We have six senses that we know about built into our human being, our human form, that are receptors. They receive information. It's what we do with that information that creates meaning. So it's a two-way street. There is the giver and the receiver. If our musicians give and the receiver is receiving at the same time, well, if you have a live concert. The artist is a little different. The artist gives behind the scenes, and the receiver receives somewhere else at another time, most likely. Now think about that. So the artist is giving that visual image that has all these things going on in it, and the artist has a certain meaning for it. But when the receiver looks at it, or the receiver is going to respond according to how you've handled those images and how you've arranged all the things that we talk about, composing the images, and so we need to train ourselves as artists to be on the receiving end as well as on the giving end. I might have contorted that one, but it was fun to contort for a while. Now let's see now. Phil, how does composition work with isolating images, composition versus... Isolation is a part of composition. Now, you know, Phil, there's this thing that I would love to clear up, and that is a lot of people think that composition is only arranging shapes and values. We are always composing. And so the isolated image, or working with isolated images, is just one way to work with images. And the purpose of the discussion of isolation is to create awareness that of what isolation is and how we can use it functionally, visually functionally, and how we can avoid using it non-functionally in our paintings. So it is a tool. Working with isolation, the isolation principle, is another compositional tool, another composing tool. Just as like working with working with repetition. That repetition is a composing tool. So we could go through the list of composing tools. Read my book. But I hope I answered that. Bridget says, how do you evaluate your painting from the point of view of emphasis when you're sick of looking at it? You turn it to the wall. You don't look, when you're sick of looking at it, you don't look at it anymore. That's my advice there. Turn it to the wall. Turn it to the wall, and even if you have to turn it to the wall for a week, a month, 3 months, 2 years, whatever it takes, until you could go back and turn it around and look at it fresh. So a lot of times we work on them way too long, and we get sick of them. And that's not the joy of painting. That has nothing to do, that takes away the joy of painting. So my advice is, turn it to the wall. The minute you grow sick of it, start something else. Turn it to the wall. And wait. Give yourself that opportunity to wait, and give yourself enough space and time from it that you can go back and see it clearly. And then I think you will find that you'll be able to, how did the question go? You will be able to see where the points of emphasis are much more clearly when you give yourself some space. All right, space and time, I should say. Johnny says, they say you only have a few seconds to get one someone's attention, so this is important. Well, that's, I don't know what that means, Joni, because painting is timeless. Huh? Do you know what you mean?
It's, you look at something, it's like,
I see what you mean. Oh, that's what you mean. When, yeah, whether someone's going to glance at your painting and walk off, that's what you mean. That's what that means. Yeah. Thank you, Roger. Yeah. Well, that's true. I guess it's true. It's kind of a rotten feeling you have. You see somebody do that. Look at your painting, just keep going. But remember, so maybe somebody might not be seeing what you're doing, but somebody may have a fight with their spouse on their minds or something like that. They might not even have seen your work. So that's. But anyway, I get off the subject on that one. Yeah, but if you have those points of emphasis there, if you have something, if your painting is set in such a way that it at least causes the viewer to pause and look at it, then you've got a better chance. And you also have to account for different people's taste, and I don't care about that kind of thing. Maybe I should, but I don't. Serendipity, Mr. Kevin. Is it common for fledgling artists to overthink everything? How does one get out of that? Get out of their one way? Yes, it is. It's very common. And what makes it worse, Kevin, is that there are just too many people that are throwing rules at you. So the overthinking is your worst enemy. Remember where it's appropriate to think. Think only when you're doing the exercises. Think only when you're working stuff out. Not on your painting. Not any more thinking that you can possibly help while you're painting. Painting should be a matter of seeing and responding. Seeing and responding. Without this mental stuff going on. But remember that what goes into that, building techniques. Painters build techniques. Any crafts person, and painting is a craft. The activity of painting itself, of picking up paint with a brush and pushing it onto a surface, that requires a craft. And we learn the craft of painting, whether it's watercolor, oil, gouache, pastel, colored pencil, that doesn't make any difference. Each one has its own craft. And so you learn the craft, and you learn how to work that without thinking. And you also learn the craft or the techniques that go into how to place images and what to do with images, and all the stuff I teach. So think ahead. Think in your sketchbook. Do your thinking in the sketchbook. Think where you're working things out. But don't think while you're painting any more than you actually absolutely have to. That's where the visual response should come in. So your question was, how do you get over it? Stop doing it. And the way we correct habits is becoming aware of the habit, and then becoming aware of not doing the habit, whatever the habit is. We change the habit. And so there's little tricks you can do. There have been times when I was, there's been in some of my gesture drawing classes where I have my students who are I'm trying to teach them gesture drawing. A gesture drawing means that you're drawing the gesture of the image and not the shape of the image. The shape is the guide, but you're drawing the motion, the movement of the image. That's what gesture drawing is. But some people are so accustomed to drawing these tight little well thought out lines that learning gesture drawing is difficult for them. So one exercise I've used that I think is somewhat effectively when I'm teaching people gesture drawing is to give them a nursery rhyme to say while they're gesture drawing. They have to say the nursery rhyme out loud. Now, no, if we grew up these nursery rhymes, they're automatic to us. That's why I choose the nursery rhymes. So I don't have to think. So if you're trying to do gesture drawing, if you have an image of a puppy here, and you're doing a gesture drawing of it, and you are saying out loud, "Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow," and you're trying to keep your gesture drawing going, you have to be responding visually while your left brain is occupied with the words. You can do little exercises like that where you automatically have your thought process occupied with something else. Another thing you do is to sing to yourself or to listen to music and listen intently to the music while you are working. So there are things you can do, and if you want some more of that, of the kinds of exercises, if you'll ask me on quick tips, and maybe I'll do a few quick tips to kind of guide you through that. Kinds of things you can do to keep yourself from overthinking. But you're absolutely right. And fledgling artists, that's his word. I think I kind of like that. I like you so also emerging artists. Don't take rules to heart. There are techniques and there are principles. There are principles that function, that those techniques function by. When you learn how something functions, it's like any tool. You learn how to use it. You don't have to have rules. Those rules are only going to hamper you. All right, I probably preached too long on that, but it doesn't matter. He says, I really need to hear that. Thanks so much. You're welcome. Have fun with it. Bridget, how can you recommend a book with lots of good exercises for oil painting in particular? Oh dear. Oh dear. A book with exercises for oil painting. Whoa. I guess maybe I'm hesitating because I don't know that many, because most of the books I know about that are about oil painting will also tend to teach rules or tend to lean you towards copying what the artists who wrote the book are doing, as you say, about oil painting. Bridget, let's see, would you put that as a question in the comments section on our quick tips, and let me do some kind of prowling around, because honestly right now there's not one that pops out as a one I would recommend where you are practicing the skills where you have exercises that are practicing those kinds of skills. Maybe I need to write that one, but I don't know when I'll have time for it. So I'm not. Just leave a comment just to remind me. Leave a comment on the quick tips, Bridget, if you will, and let me delve into that one. Debbie says, "What great advice!" Oh, good. She's complimenting. It certainly gives a sense of freedom to practice the skills, then paint. Yes, yes. Cheryl, is placing something in the sweet spot and automatic for drawing your eye? Do we psychologically go up there? Cheryl, that's something that is really curious. Pardon me. What we call sweet spots. There too, we gotta be careful that we don't use those as rules. It's still a mystery why the golden mean works. It's still a mystery why placing images within that division of the golden mean works. The reason it works is it allows for a kind of very pleasant balance. And the sweet spots are based on the golden mean. If you have one of those Fibonacci tools, if you don't have one of those of you are interested in composition, I think it's a wonderful tool to have, and their own Etsy. Is it Etsy, that place? For very inexpensive, and they're really, it's a nice little tool to have. It's a little proportional tool that shows you can find the sweet spots with it. But the reason I say that is that sweet spots, any rectangle, if you the four corners that are the four corners on the outside of the rectangle, in the dead center, those spaces that are halfway between that center and each corner are what we call sweet spots. It's a larger space. It's because of a larger space. That place is within that golden rectangle. The square and the golden rectangle has a square. It has an extension of 0.618 proportion to the one of the square. We don't know. We don't know why that. It's kind of like, where does the soul come from and where does it go? We don't know. people have theories, but we don't know for sure. So the question, it may have something that I feels comfortable going there, and so it is a kind of psychology. Do we psychologically go first? I think it probably is a kind of psychology. I don't know why. I don't know why. But for centuries and centuries and centuries, since the Renaissance, since Brunelleschi, since the Renaissance, artists have become aware that that area of a canvas, of a rectangle, the area of a rectangle, and it's magic, it's power. So it's one place where I don't have the answer. It's one of those places where I know it, but I can't answer it. All right, let's see. Love the nursery rhyme technique, Cheryl. Good. Oh, everybody's thanking me. Hello, back to Sargent, please. What blue is he using, and were the figures models? Sargent, I don't know what blue he was using. Sargent, I don't know what blue he was using. I'm not sure. I don't know if the figures are models. Now, what I do know is in some of his paintings, he would see characters in doing various things, various activities in various places, and he would do drawings and quick studies right there on the scene. He might use his family as models, or I think he used his niece as a model for repetition of a figure in one of his paintings, the one whose title skips me right now. But I'm not really sure where the actual images of the people come from there. So I'm going to answer. I'll just leave that one there because I don't know exactly. I don't remember if I've ever read exactly whether he developed his paintings developed that particular painting from doing studies of the people he observed doing fishing or oyster. He said fishing for oysters. Was that right? Oyster fishing, yeah. I have something else. This is another title for it. I'm running blanks now. But anyway, I'm not real sure, and I don't really know what blue he used. Which blue are you talking about? Could you be? Let's see. What blue is he using? What blue is he using? Not real sure. Is that Dianne? Dianne? Good to see you. Okay, not real sure. I'm sorry I stumbled over that one, but I'm not sure. Okay, let's see. Oh my goodness, we're getting really, really short of time.
Catherine Loudon.
Oh, Catherine Loudon.
Just become a studio insider.
Just became a studio insider. Welcome, Catherine. So we will give you, if I remember to, any new members who join, and especially join during the chats, we especially welcome you. So we're getting close now to wrapping this down. We just have a few minutes left. So if you have another question you want to answer, want me to answer, if you want to ask, or you want to answer one of my questions, whatever, go ahead and put it in. I do appreciate all of you joining us. We have a real good attendance this afternoon, and it's a wonderful subject. Go explore it. But I didn't realize that the isolating images could take us to the whole process of thinking and the fact that we're communicating visually. But there's one place where I hope you'll really take it seriously, knowing the difference between when you're overthinking, when you're trying to follow somebody else's rules, just because somebody tells you that you should never do this and you should never do that. There's when you should say, you should doubt that. You should doubt that. Look what the masters do. You can just take the, I haven't said anything about Richard Schmid today, but you can take Richard Schmid's book, Alla Prima, and go through it and examine it, and you probably find where he has done many of the things where you've been told you should never do. So I'd be very cautious about having anybody to try to thwart your creativity by telling you not to do something. And something else, if anybody tells you that your work is inferior and not worth whatever, anything like that, that person does not deserve your attention. You should delete that person from your thoughts. Oh, wow, we just got a tip from Serendipity. Thank you. All right, let's see. Catherine says, I have just rejoined. I would like to thank you for all the valuable lessons I've learned from you on YouTube over the years. Recently saw my first bagel. Congratulations, Catherine.
Right.
That's wonderful. Oyster gatherers. That's the other thing it's called. Oyster gatherers in Cancal, or Cancal.
King Cow, I think.
Oh gosh, here I go, showing the ignorance again.
It's foreign.
Yeah. May I contact you by email? Yes, indeed. Always available. You can always go, if you want to set up a consultation session, you always go to the website, click on if you're on a computer or a laptop, you can click on the left-hand column, and it kind of falls in line with other things if you're on your some tablets and if you're on a phone, where you can say something about schedule a session with Dianne, or if you'd like to schedule just those of you, you just go there and find out what's available. DianneMize.com, 2 N's, DIANNE, DianneMize.com, where we have all of our video lessons for download only, and also other ways that you can find help. Don't forget our weekly quick tips. Those are always available to you. And very soon, we'll have the Academy available for you to take courses online, in-depth courses on various of the topics about composing paintings. Okay, that's it. I'm running into the sign-off time. Thank you all for joining us. This has been, you've had some great questions, and anytime you can get me going, you know it's a great question. So you're quite welcome. All of you are saying thank you. Yes, it's been our pleasure, and we hope you will join us again in July. We're going to be on the third Sunday in July, aren't we?
Hopefully.
I think we've got it on
The
schedule.
third or fourth.
The third or fourth. We've decided, we'll decide. It's either going to be the third or the fourth, but we'll let you know ahead of time. Keep your eye on your email. Thank you so much for your support, and happy painting. So bye-bye for now.
Welcome back. I hope everyone enjoyed that. And if you'd like to recap, it will be available in the live tab under the In the Studio Art Instruction channel on YouTube. And YouTube should have it processed within an hour. And you can go back and review, see anything you want to see on that. And we're all wishing our favorite art teacher, Dianne Mize, a speedy recovery. She's working with her physical therapist. And hope you join us again next month. Bye for now.